to you today about one of the greatest Christians that ever lived. And that would be, not me, unfortunately, but that would be the Apostle Paul. Now, Paul had a lot of adventures on his missionary journeys, and he wrote most of the not all of, but most of the New Testament. But his adventures that get me excited the most is when he was shipwrecked and then found on an island. So I'm going to read the story to you. It's from Acts 27, if you care to look it up on your own. And it says, on a ship leaving Caesarea was Paul the prisoner, and as the shore faded in the distance, Paul saw for the last time the land that is dear to the heart of every Jew. Never again would he return to the country of Judea. Paul was not the only prisoner on board. At Caesarea, he had several others that had been given over to the Roman captain Julius and then Festus ordered Julius and his men to take the prisoners safely to Rome and deliver them unto Caesar. Probably the Christians at Caesarea gathered at the seashore to say goodbye to their beloved friend, and no doubt many of them wept as they saw Paul being taken away in chains. Paul was not the only Christian among the passengers. Two of his friends, Dr. Luke and, I have been trouble with his name all the time, Aristarchus, went along, and the next day the ship stopped at Sidon. By this time, Paul had won the respect of the Roman officer and was given permission to go ashore to visit his friends. So the Roman officers must have trusted Paul, evidently. And anyways, Paul, Luke, and Aristarchus and a soldier guard had time for a short visit with the Christians at Sidon. The ship docked at Myra, its last stop, and the Roman captain found another ship ready to sail for Italy. He had the soldiers and their prisoners board this ship, and it set sail as soon as they were back in the great Mediterranean Sea. Sailing was not good, for the winds were strong and from the wrong direction, and no wonder the passengers were glad when they stopped at the harbor of Fair Havens on the island of Crete. Winter was coming, and sailing was already dangerous, but the captain was eager to get back to Rome, and the owner of the ship was willing to sail on. Paul told the owner and the captain, "Sirs, this will be a dangerous voyage. You will cause much injury and damage if we sail now." Because Fair Havens was not a good place to spend the winter, the owner decided to go further south before stopping for the winter, so the ship glided out of the harbor and into the broad sea. They had not gone far when a tempestuous wind swept down upon them, and now there was no turning back, and they could not go ahead. How the angry waves tossed that little ship. They did not know how soon the ship might be torn to pieces. The captain and the owner of the ship remembered Paul's advice. First, they tried to lighten the ship by throwing things overboard. Then they waited anxiously for the storm to pass, but it raged on, and they could not see the sun by day or the stars by night. One morning, Paul called everyone to him, and above the roar of the storm, he told them, "Sirs, if you had listened to me, this would not have happened. But be of good cheer. Even though we shall lose the ship, no one will lose his life. And last night, an angel of God, of the God I serve, told me this." Okay. Still, I better put that back on, it blocks the sun. Still, the storm did not lessen, and the people were afraid that they would be drowned. 2 weeks passed. Then one night, the sailors discovered they were nearing land. No one knew where they were, since they had drifted on waves for many days. They did not even know whether they were nearing a rocky coast or a sandy beach. For fear of being wrecked on the shore, they threw the anchors overboard and waited anxiously for morning to come. The sailors knew in what danger they were. They could not bring the ship safely to land, so they planned to escape and save their own lives. And they began to lower a small boat, but they pretended to be casting more anchors into the sea. Paul knew what the sailors were doing, and he told the centurion, "We cannot be saved unless these sailors stay in the ship." This time, the Roman officer did not even stop to question Paul's words. He cut the ropes that held the small boat, and he let it drift away. Toward morning, Paul said, "This is the 14th day we have been without food. I ask all of you to eat now, so that you will be strengthened, and that no one will be lost." Before all the people, Paul took bread and gave thanks to God, and the people took courage and ate with him. At daybreak, they could see the land. The sailors did not recognize the place, but ahead was a sandy shore. Lifting the anchors, they tried to steer the ship into a small stream. Soon the ship ran aground and stuck fast. The sea beat against the back of the ship so violently that the ship began to break up, and then the soldiers wanted to kill the prisoners for fear some would escape. If one got away, a soldier would have to pay with his own life, and the Roman captain did not want Paul killed, so he refused to let the soldiers harm any of the prisoners. At the captain's orders, those who could swim jumped into the water and swam ashore. Others found broken pieces of the ship and floated ashore. Not one of the 276 people was drowned. This next part, called Safe on an Island, takes place in Acts 28, 1 through 10. And let me tell you the story. On the shore of the island, a group of excited men anxiously watched those who were shipwrecked make their way to the land, and the natives felt sorry for the strangers who were wet and cold. They built a fire, and those who had been shipwrecked gathered around it eagerly, and how glad they were to have a fire. Sometimes a fire can feel pretty amazing. As they talked with the islanders, they discovered that they were on the island of Melita, south of Italy. And the islanders noticed that among these strangers were several soldiers and prisoners. The fire began to burn low, and Paul went to gather wood to keep it burning. And as he laid his sticks on the fire, the heat from the flames arose a poisonous snake that was hidden among the sticks, and the snake bit Paul's hand. Well, the islanders knew that Paul was a prisoner, and when they saw that his snake was hanging from his hand, they whispered to each other, "This man must be a murderer. Even though he has escaped from the sea, the gods will not allow him to live." They watched, expecting to see Paul's arm swell or to see him drop over dead, but nothing happened. He had not been harmed at all. In wonder, the islanders looked at one another, and they said to themselves, "This man must be a god, for even the deadly snake does not hurt him." Nearby lived Publius, the ruler of the island. He invited Paul and his friends to his home and entertained them for 3 days. While there, Paul discovered that Publius' father was very ill, and the old man had a disease that often causes death. And when Paul prayed for him, the old man was made well. News of his healing spread quickly over the island, and the people brought all their sick to Paul, and he healed them. And the islanders and those from the ship saw God's power at work, and Paul preached to them about Jesus, and those who received the good news were made happy. For 3 months, Paul and the others stayed on this island. You're thinking I hear voices over there. People are fishing out there, so I probably do hear voices. I'm not usually prone to hearing voices, but I am kind of mentally unbalanced. Not really. All right, I hope that you enjoyed the story about Paul and his fellow prisoners and their harrowing adventure. God bless you all. Love you all very much, and I'll see you again soon. Hasta la vista.